Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and, well, you know what this hat means. It's going to be another anime content video. This one is about the show Chainsawman. Real popular right now. Sure, a lot of you guys are watching it. I'm watching it. Season finale is next week. And this isn't going to be my thoughts on Chainsawman. I will actually be doing a full review of it probably the day after the final episode airs. So, looking like maybe Wednesday. But until then, we do have an article. Petition started to remake Chainsawman anime with a new director. Now, this caught me off guard because I thought people loved the animation in Chainsaw Man. At least I assume that's what they're referring to because, well, several of my friends have read the manga. I have not. But apparently it's been pretty faithful so far, so I can't see a reason they would want it done with a new director if not for the animation. But let's go through and see. Chainsaw Man, the highly anticipated anime series, is coming to an end next week with its final episode of the Katana Man arc. While the anime was highly publicized and had high expectations, it ultimately slightly underperformed in ratings and sales. Really? In response, a dedicated fan from Japan had started a petition on Change.org, a popular platform for online petitions, calling for the anime to be remade with a new director. Well, fat chance of that happening. Odds are the direction I wouldn't think is the problem, so much so as marketing, advertising, things like that. I don't see too many people having an issue with the direction, since most people don't really know what goes into directing anime like they do, films. So, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think enough people care about that. Also, do you realize how expensive that would be? Even if you got all the signatures in the world, it's not gonna be done. The petition titled, "Please Remake the Anime Chainsaw Man with a New Director," details the various issues with the current adaptation, and a 700-word description of the petition. The creator of the petition, a dedicated fan of the original manga, expresses disappointment in the anime version and laments the loss of momentum that made the original work so charming. I have thoughts on that, but again, I think I'm going to save it for my review. For now, I will just say, I don't know if charming would be the word to describe even the manga, based on everything I've heard. Again, I'm an anime guy, not a manga guy. If you think that gives me less weeb cred, then I suppose, be that as it may. But I just like to multitask, and I can't multitask if I'm holding something reading, so I like to be able to listen. But yeah, if this is his main argument, then I don't see a lot of people even agreeing with this. I'm not going to say whether I agree or disagree with it, but I don't see a lot of individuals agreeing with this. It's been a pretty fast-paced anime, so it's a strange complaint. One of the main issues raised in the petition is the interpretation of the original work by director Ryu Nakayama. As cited in the petition, many fans have felt that there is a significant gap between Nakayama's vision for the anime and the original manga. Another major issue raised in the petition is the overall quality of the animation. Here it is. See, this is what I thought it was going to be about from the jump. I will say that when this first episode dropped, when the very first episode of the anime dropped, a buddy of mine said that it was the best animation he'd ever seen in an anime. And I heavily disagreed. I hadn't even seen the first episode yet. I just knew there's no way. Of every anime ever made, this brand new show from a relatively obscure manga, at least in comparison to something like, Bleach, which is getting a revival at the same time with what seems to be a much bigger budget, and, Demon Slayer, various anime films like Dragon Ball Super Broly and Superhero, which obviously had big budgets behind them and are much larger IPs. I just couldn't believe him when he said this had the best animation. And after I started watching the show for myself, and he kept saying, it's the best, but now he would say, it's the best in the last decade. It's the best I've seen all year. He kept kind of minimizing it. And yeah, he was just kind of sucking this show's dick animation-wise. And I don't see it. It looked fine, but the quality isn't bad, but the quality isn't near the hype he was propping it up to be. I consider myself a bit of an animation snob, especially since I'm an 80s and 90s anime fan who prefers all hand-drawn, and I don't like the use of computers and whatnot. Cell shading is, where it's at, in my opinion. That being said, I don't know if it's a big enough issue to warrant an entire Change.org petition. While the animation itself has been praised for its high quality, there have been criticisms of the direction and storyboarding of the show, with some feeling that the impact of the battle scenes and gags has been lost due to a reliance on realism and excessive use of drawing strokes. In contrast, on SNS, there are opinions that Mappa Studios' Dorohedoro, the anime production company Trigger, would have been the ideal direction for Chainsaw Man's animation. Okay, it's funny they say that, because I was saying the same thing 2 or 3 weeks ago, that I wish Trigger had done Chainsaw Man. I don't know if it would have really been better for me or worse for me, considering my thoughts on the show. I don't know how much an animation change would alter my thoughts on the show positively or negatively. Again, trying to stay very ambiguous until I release my full review. But I do think that Trigger is a more interesting studio choice than Mappa would have been, than Mappa was. I guess it's just one of those what-ifs that in some sort of alternate universe out there truly was a universe where Trigger did the animation instead of Mappa. But sadly, we will never see that universe unless we somehow crack the code that Stephen Hawking spent his whole life working on sometime in my lifetime, and at which point, by then, it will probably be too late for me to care about a single anime, because, well, if we're traveling to other multi-dimensions and universes, there's a whole lot more I want to see than Chainsaw Man by Trigger. The music and sound design of the anime have also come under fire in the petition. I'm not going to give my opinion on the sound design. I have opinions on them, but I won't give it. I will give my opinion on the music, though. Maybe it's like a little morsel to tie you guys over for my actual review coming out later this week or early next week. It's really good. The music in Chainsaw Man is very well done, and I'm not just talking about openings and endings. I'm talking about during battle scenes, during quiet moments, the music that they write as background music for whatever the characters are going through in the show itself. I don't know why they would call into question the music, unless of course it just didn't fit the tone of the manga and they think the music is giving an overall different tone to the show than what should be necessary. Since I didn't read the manga, I don't know. But if there was one thing I don't think you could criticize about Chainsaw Man, it would be the music. So that is interesting to hear that it's getting flack, with many fans feeling the background music is unmemorable and that the sound effects, particularly the chainsaw sound, are lacking in power. In addition, there have been criticisms of the voice acting, particularly in the comedy scenes, which some feel are unsuccessful due to a lack of proper annotation and failure to capture the essence of the characters. That is going to be an interesting aspect about my review, though, because I have been watching it Japanese with subs, and then also watching the dub, which is 2 weeks behind. So when I do my review, I will not have seen the final 2 episodes of the season dubbed. However, my thoughts on the show actually vary widely in a few places, depending on whether you're watching the sub or the dub. When they talk about the comedy scenes and criticisms of the voice acting, since this is a Japanese Change.org petition, I do assume that he's talking about the Japanese voice acting. But it does make me wonder what they would think of the English dub. I know that that's a pretty contentious subject, sub versus dubs. I find it to be an annoying, trite, and overdone subject, but one I'm sure that will come up on the channel a few more times because weeb's got a weeb. I don't know if this is something that Americans can, or any English speakers that don't also fluently speak Japanese, can weigh too much on, because you can talk about how you love subs better than dubs better all day, all night. Oh, it just sounds better, dubbed in the original Japanese. Let's be honest. You don't always understand tone or context or anything to that effect when you're just reading the words and listening. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So if I was to say, what's he talking about? The Japanese cast is awesome. The Japanese voices are doing great. I took a few years of Japanese in high school and was conversational in my late teen years. I've pretty much forgotten all but a minority of it. And yeah, I'll be the first to admit that while I can understand some of the words that are being said with or without subtitles, and while I can understand some sentences, it is not near enough, and my grasp of understanding is not near enough to get tone or inflection or anything to that effect in about 70% of cases where it's not obvious. If there's any room for ambiguity, especially in comedy where ambiguity is kind of what drives comedy, I'm going to be wrong 70% of the time. That's what the subtitles are great for. You know, the question marks, exclamation points, ellipses, things that help you process tone when you're reading. I will just take this individual, since he's Japanese, take his word for it, that they're not doing it as well as they could be. The performance of the protagonist, Denji in particular, has been singled out for criticism in the petition. Compared to the original work, Denji's portrayal is bleak and lacks the charismatic craziness, and Toyoki Kusuke's casting as Denji is unpopular. Even before the anime adaptation, there were strong calls for Nobuhiko Okamoto to play the same role. Nobuhiko Okamoto, that name sounds familiar. Let's look him up and see what he's done. Okay, so he's Bakugo. He is the Japanese Bakugo. I could see that voice working for Denji, yeah. Oh, an assassination classroom. Okay, Akabane. That's cool. Again, I don't want the guy to be pigeonholed into always that same sort of character, but I can also see that sort of voice working for Denji. Ugh, but he was also Luke in The Sacred Blacksmith, which I will go on record and say is one of the worst anime of all time. So maybe this guy's record isn't so spotless. But yeah, that's fair. I could see this actor doing that role based on what I know him from. That being said, since I have no comparison to the manga, I also don't particularly mind Denji's current voice. I mean, if I was to think of a young, dumb 16-year-old that sounds Japanese because he's speaking Japanese, to my untrained ear, what we have is as good as any. That's not really... To me, it's more of a non-issue, but like I said before, it's probably because I don't speak the language fluently, therefore I don't hear subtle nuances and differences that a native speaker can probably pick up, and yeah, I will defer back to them on that one. Tatsuki Fujimoto's views on the anime adaptation. The author of Chainsaw Man, Tatsuki Fujimoto, was involved in the anime adaptation from the start, as the MAPPA production team considered his opinion in every aspect of the anime. That's good. You always want, in my opinion, the original creator to be as involved as possible when doing an adaptation, regardless of what the medium is. He posted a tweet on the premiere of the anime. The animation of Chainsaw Man is recommended because the opening and ending and video are good. It seems that the video changes every time the ending is done, so I recommend it. The OP is a good song that repeats many times, so I recommend it. The artwork is also very good, so I recommend it. Now, I'm sure that this is as close to a direct translation as we can get, but also the guy's a writer. I doubt he wrote something this wooden and soulless sounding in his native tongue. This is clearly a translation. Take this with a grain of salt, because I mean, when I read this just sounds like marketing, like he's saying what he has to say. But in all reality, it could actually be genuine when read or heard or pronounced or whatnot in Japanese. But recently in an interview, he explained that Chainsaw Man anime is a little weird as it does not follow the original manga art style because of its animation quality. But he said the Chainsaw Man anime could ignore the original manga and animate it however it seems best. MAPPA has a reputation for receiving criticism for its animation, particularly the use of CGI. One well-known example is Attack on Titan Final Season Part 1, where some staff members even deleted their Twitter accounts due to the backlash. I mean, I don't know if this is coming... So, this is something you hear about a lot in America, and I hope this is an all-over-the-world trend and not just America thing. It'd make me feel a whole lot better. Like, artists are out there doing shitty work, people attack them, so they delete their Twitter. Don't get me wrong, I don't think you should go out and harass anyone on Twitter in terms of, like, calling them names or giving them death threats or being rude or hateful. But I also don't think there's a problem with giving your opinion. If you want to tweet at an artist who it's their job to do art and tell them, yo, I didn't like this art. You know, what happened? You could have done so much better. I don't really see a problem with that. Don't do it every day. That's harassment. But throwing a tweet out saying you're criticizing someone's work, being a critic of someone's work, no, that's not really a problem. You're a customer. You're a paying customer. You want to purchase the product and you want the product to be good. You don't want to buy a crappy product. So, yeah, I don't really see an issue as long as you're not being a dick about it or harassing about it. Giving honest, negative feedback on Twitter. Therefore, fans of Chainsaw Man expected similar issues with the anime adaptation. Whether or not the petition will be successful remains to be seen. What are your thoughts on this petition? Let us know your opinion in the comment section below. Well, my thoughts on this petition are, it will go nowhere. the show is too new and way too expensive to just redo. There's no demand for it. I definitely get that from an artistic standpoint, and I don't just mean artistic as in the animation, like when honoring someone's art. Manga is still art. Creating a new story is art. Drawing is art. Writing, it's all part of a creative process. And when you love a piece of art, and somebody attempts to do something new with that piece of art, recreate it, adapt it, whatever, you're going to have fans of the original piece of art who are going to be more judgmental and more critical of it than individuals that didn't see the art in its original form. Such as myself, having not seen or read the Chainsawman manga. So yes, I do think there's probably a few more purists other than this guy who, want to see this done and done right. But there's no way that there's going to be a budget or a market for it. I mean, as we can see at the time, it had 12 out of 1,500 signatures. But who knows how long ago this was. I wish we could have an updated number as of the time of this video. But honestly, it doesn't matter. It could get 15,000 signatures, and it wouldn't happen. This show's not getting remade, at least not this early. Look, Rurouni Kenshin's being remade. That came out in the 90s. Give it 20 years, let them try it again. That being said, I think that's all I've got for this. Go ahead and tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that the Chainsaw Man anime is in need of a remake? Does it have bad direction? Are you looking forward to my review of the series itself on Wednesday? And did you also know I'm going to be doing a Bleach 1000 Year Blood War arc review probably on Tuesday, since that last episode drops Monday. All in all, I'm looking forward to doing these reviews, even though it's not my typical sort of content. I hope you enjoy them as well. And I also hope you subscribe, since I am very much trying to grow this channel. It'd mean the world to me. Follow me on Twitter at BothTheWord, because this has been Words of Paradise.